Hello, my dear students of class 12. Today I'm with yet another video lesson of Indigo by Lewis Fisher. In this video lesson, we'll do the theme Introduction, a detailed analysis of the incidents of the chapter, along with plot and main points of the chapter. So let's start. This is from Flamingo Prose Indigo by Lewis Fisher. The main theme, let's talk about the theme. The main theme of the chapter Indigo by Lewis Fisher is how effective leadership can overcome any problem, as shown by Mahatma Gandhi in securing justice for the oppressed in Champaran through convincing arguments and negotiation. Introduction. In this story, Lewis describes Gandhi's struggle for the poor peasants of Champaran who were the sharecroppers with the British planters. They led a miserable life and were forced to grow indigo according to an agreement. They suffered a great injustice due to the landlord system in Bihar. Gandhi waged a war for about a year against the atrocities and brought justice to the poor peasants. Indigo sharecropping. The terms of the Indigo contract between the British and the peasants were that the peasants were sharecropper tenants, had to plant 15% of the land holding with indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest to the British landlords as rent. Main points of the lesson. Rajkumar Shukla, a poor sharecropper, wished to meet Gandhi to complain about the injustice of the landlord system in Champaran. Shukla followed Gandhi everywhere and begged him to fix a date to come to his district. Gandhi was much impressed and fixed a schedule. Gandhi and Shukla reached Patna to meet Dr. Rajendra Prasad, but he was out of town. Then decided to go to Muzaffarpur first to get detailed information about Champaran sharecroppers. Sent telegram to J.B. Kriplani and stayed in Professor Malkani's home, a government servant. Indians were afraid to show sympathy to the supporters of Home Rule. The news of Gandhi's arrival spread. Sharecroppers gathered in large numbers to meet their champion. Gandhi chided the Muzaffarpur lawyers for taking a high fee from poor sharecroppers. Champaran district was divided into estate owned by English people. Indians were only tenant farmers. Landlords compelled tenants to plant 15% of their land with indigo and surrender their entire harvest as rent. In the meantime, Germany had developed synthetic indigo. British landlords freed the Indian farmers from the 15% agreement but asked them to pay compensation. Many signed, some resisted, engaged lawyers, landlords hired thugs. Gandhi reached Champaran, visited the secretary of the British Landlord Association to get the facts but denied as he was an outsider. Gandhi went to the British official commissioner who asked him to leave Tirhat. Gandhi disobeyed, went to Motihari, the capital of Champaran, where a vast multitude greeted him. Continued his investigation, visited maltreated villagers, stopped by the police superintendent but disobeyed the order. Motihari, black with peasants, spontaneous demonstration. Gandhi released without bail. Civil disobedience triumphed. Gandhi agreed to a 25% refund by the landowners. It symbolized the surrender of prestige. Gandhi worked hard towards social economic reforms of Champaran. Gandhi taught a lesson of self-reliance. Let's go to development of chapter. Gandhi's meeting with Rajkumar Shukla. In December 1916, Gandhi went to Lucknow to attend the annual convention of the Indian National Congress. There were 2,301 delegates and many visitors. A peasant from Champaran, Rajkumar Shukla, asked Gandhi to visit his district. Shukla followed Gandhi wherever he went. In 1917, Gandhi and Shukla boarded a train for Patna. Shukla led Gandhi to the house of a lawyer named Rajendra Prasad. They could not see him as he was out of town. Gandhi's visit to Champaran. Gandhi decided to go first to Muzaffarpur to obtain complete information about the condition in Champaran. He reached Muzaffarpur by a train at midnight on 15th April 1917. Professor J.B. Kriplani received him at the station. Gandhi stayed there for 2 days. The news of Gandhi's arrival and the nature of his mission spread quickly through Muzaffarpur and to Champaran. Sharecroppers from Champaran began arriving there. Muzaffarpur lawyers briefed Gandhi about the court cases. He chided the lawyers for collecting big fees from the sharecroppers. He thought that law courts were useless for the crushed and fear-stricken peasants. The real relief for them was to be free from fear. Then Gandhi arrived in Champaran. He began by trying to get the facts from the secretary of the British Landlords Association. He refused to give information to an outsider. Gandhi said that he was not an outsider. Next, Gandhi called on the British official commissioner of the Tirhat division. The commissioner started bullying Gandhi and advised him to leave Tirhat. Instead of leaving the area, Gandhi went to Motihari, the capital of Champaran. Several lawyers accompanied him. A large crowd of people greeted Gandhi at the railway station. It was the beginning of their liberation from fear of the British. Next is beginning for liberation. A peasant had been maltreated in a nearby village. The next morning, Gandhiji started out on the back of an elephant. Soon he was stopped by the police superintendent's messenger and ordered to return to town in his carriage. Gandhiji complied. The messenger drove Gandhi home. Then he served him with an official notice to quit Champaran at once. Gandhi signed the receipt for the notice and wrote on it that he would disobey the order. Gandhi received a summons to appear in court the next day. At night, Gandhi telegraphed Rajendra Prasad and sent instructions to the ashram and wired a full report to the viceroy. Removal of fear of sharecroppers. Thousands of peasants gathered around the courthouse. The officials felt powerless. The authorities wished to consult their superiors. Gandhi protested against the delay. The magistrate announced that he would pronounce sentence after a 2-year recess. He asked Gandhi to furnish bail for those 120 minutes. Gandhi refused. The judge released him without bail. The court started again after a break. The judge said he would not deliver the judgment for several days. He allowed Gandhi to remain at liberty. Gandhi asked the prominent lawyers about the injustice to the sharecroppers. They consulted among themselves. Then they told Gandhi that they were ready to follow him into jail. Gandhi then divided the group into pairs and fixed the order in which each pair was to court arrest. After several days, Gandhi was informed by the magistrate that the case had been dropped. For the first time in modern India, civil disobedience had triumphed. Gandhi and lawyers conducted an inquiry into the complaints of the peasants. About 10,000 peasants deposed. Documents were collected. Gandhi was summoned by Sir Edward Gate, the lieutenant governor. He met the lieutenant governor 4 times. An official commission of inquiry was appointed. Gandhi remained at Champaran initially for 7 months and then came for several shorter visits. The official inquiry assembled evidence against the big planters. They agreed in principle to make refunds to the peasants. Gandhi asked only 50%. The representative of the planters offered to refund up to 25%. Gandhi agreed. The deadlock was broken. Gandhi agreed for 25% refund. Gandhi explained that the amount of the refund was less important than the fact that the landlords had been forced to give some money and their prestige. The peasant now saw that he had rights and defenders. Okay, the peasant now saw that he had right and defenders. He learned courage. Events justified Gandhi's position. Within a few years, the British planters abandoned their estates. This now went back to the peasants. Indigo sharecropping disappeared. Social and cultural upliftment in Champaran. Gandhi wanted to do something to remove the cultural and social backwardness in Champaran villages. He appealed for teachers. Two young disciples of Gandhi, Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, and their wives volunteered for work. Several more came from Bombay, Pune, and other distant parts of the land. Devdas, Gandhi's youngest son, arrived from the ashram, and so did Mrs. Gandhi. Primary schools were opened in 6 villages. Kasturba taught the ashram rules on personal cleanliness and community sanitation. Health conditions were miserable. Gandhi got a doctor to volunteer his services for 6 months. 3 medicines were available: castor oil, quinine, and sulfur ointment. Gandhi noticed the filthy state of women's clothes. The woman told Kasturba that she had only one sari. During his long stay in Champaran, Gandhi kept a long distance watch on the ashram and sent regular instructions by mail. Champaran, a turning point in Gandhi's life. The Champaran episode was a turning point in Gandhi's life. It did not begin as an act of defiance. It grew out of an attempt to lessen the sufferings of the poor peasants. Gandhi's politics was closely connected with the practical day-to-day problems of the millions. He tried to mold a new free Indian who could stand on his own feet and thus make India free. Gandhi also taught his followers a lesson in self-reliance. Gandhi's lawyer friend thought that it would be a good idea for Charles Freer Andrews, the English pacifist, to stay in Champaran and help them. Andrews was willing if Gandhi agreed, but Gandhi opposed it forcefully. He said, "The cause is just and you must rely upon yourselves to win the battle." Thus, self-reliance, Indian independence, and help to sharecroppers were all bound together. Now let's discuss about the various characters that we find here in this lesson. First character is Rajkumar Shukla. Rajkumar Shukla was a poor, emaciated sharecropper who had been a victim of British landlords. He had been a victim of British landlords. He was illiterate. However, he was determined to fight against the injustice of the British landlords. It was he who went to meet Gandhiji to seek his help to fight the British landlords. Gandhiji was exceedingly occupied, but he did not leave his side until he had given him a date to visit Champaran. Impressed by the sharecropper's determination, Gandhiji gave him an appointment. Rajkumar Shukla played a very important role in the Champaran episode. Mahatma Gandhi. Let us have a analysis of the character of Mahatma Gandhi. The chapter Indigo pays a tribute to the leadership shown by Mahatma Gandhi to secure justice for oppressed people through convincing argumentation and negotiation. Gandhi had a magnetic attraction and great persuasive power. He could draw people of all classes to himself and make them partners in the freedom movement. Even ordinary people were inspired to make contribution to the freedom movement. Gandhiji emerges as a champion of the downtrodden and the oppressed. Rural uplift was his favorite program. His knowledge of legal procedure and respect for law is also highlighted. He does not want to be a lawbreaker. At the same time, he wants to render the humanitarian and national service in obedience to the highest law of our being, the voice of conscience. He also appears as a polite and friendly person. Gandhi's ability to read the minds of others made them speechless. He believed in self reliance, just cause, and purity of means to achieve India's independence. That is all about today's video lesson. I hope you like this video lesson, and in other video lesson we will discuss about question and answers. With this, thank you very much.